What are some funny things that you've seen? What do you?
Oh, there's tons of stories. Some funny, some serious, some not so funny, I guess.
Yeah.
Some of the issues you have, our cameras capture everything. You can name anything that happens in a parking lot at dark. We've seen it, as you can imagine. So it's pretty wild, some of the stuff that they'll catch. Yeah, people are just people. They do things in parking lots.
Okay, well, I like it. I went ahead and just went live. We'll wait for people to get on, but tell me about that drum set back there. Do you play?
Oh, no, I don't play very well at all. It's actually my son's drum set. So this is the room that we've banished it to in like the far corner of the basement because it's just so loud. And then during COVID, when everything exploded, I started taking drum lessons from my son. So my 14-year-old son is teaching me.
I'm impressed.
I'm not very good.
That's that gift you never want to buy yourself or your kids.
Yeah.
Like the one you buy your grandkids.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, he likes it. He does it at school, and he's in this little band, and gives him something to kind of, keep him busy and keep his brain going, and not a video game. So I'm okay with it.
I love it. Yeah. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. For anybody that's on, I see we have a few watchers on, or people viewing. I have to tell you, this weekend I went down to Blanding and helped to harvest hemp and learned a little bit about it, and that was quite the treat. It was a good experience. Cool. Yeah. Good morning, Mason. I'm glad to see you on. If anybody else is on, please drop a note, say hello. We have a big association meeting tomorrow. I will add the link on here for you guys to join. It's our monthly meeting. I'd love to have you guys on, get involved, learn what's going on around the globe, but specifically in Utah and the United States, and how we can kind of help fix supply chains and so forth. So hello, David. Good to see you. Anyways, Paul, great to have you. I'm glad to have connected with you. Paul and I spoke a little bit this morning, but you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and how you and I got here, I guess.
Sure. So I work for a company based out of Utah County in Utah called LiveView Technologies. We specialize in remote mobile security surveillance systems. And it's a very fast growing company based in Utah, but we service literally all over North America, and we're quickly expanding outside of North America. And the cannabis hemp industry is one of those areas clearly that is also exploding. And so our paths have kind of diverged recently. And we have a friend at work, Amanda, that Mandi is friends with. And she basically said, hey, we should talk. We should try and get together and see what we can do. And so anyway, at work, they said, hey, Paul, you've been working with this stuff. Why don't you go talk to Mandi? And here we are.
I love it. So I know quite a bit about LiveView, and I see a big value add to our industry because of complications around not just theft when we talk about security, but the remote when we're talking about a lot of these fields being, out in the middle of nowhere where satellite service or where internet really isn't, or connection to, cameras, as well as in facility, opportunities. So I'd love to chat a little bit or explain kind of more in depth about what you guys do. But first, tell me a little bit about you. You're in Utah, been in Utah your whole life.
Sure. So I grew up kind of in Texas as a kid, and then we moved to Utah. Moved away when I was 18, lived all over the place, all over the United States, internationally. And then we came back here to Utah about 5 years ago. So we've been back here in Utah about 5 years, and absolutely love the state, love everything about it. And it's great. It's been a great place to live. I've spent the last roughly two decades in security and the tech sector. So I know security, the whole security industry very well. And Utah, for most of your followers, I would assume kind of has this ballooning tech sector that has kind of sprung up over the last 10, 15 years and seems to be growing exponentially, similar to this industry, obviously. And so, so that's kind of where my professional world has kind of led me. And then with LiveView, it's kind of a great blend of all those things. I've worked with wireless technologies and fixed 5G and security platforms. And so that's where LiveView comes in. And LiveView essentially takes all of those things in my background and put them into the exact same business. And I absolutely love it. We're able to build these great products and connect people to their security surveillance systems literally anywhere on the planet. We have people calling us from Saudi Arabia, from Brazil, from Australia, in these remote corners of these countries, asking for our solution because they can't figure it out. And it's been awesome. So happy to jump into that, anything you want to do. But anyways, that's kind of my quick background.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I want to go, because I think you guys have something that when I talk about security to people in the industry, and tell me what you hear when you talk.
So in a nutshell, what we do is we take a fully self-contained unit, meaning it doesn't need access to external power, doesn't need access to an external comms link. And then we can take that unit, it's about the size of a small car, and we can literally take it anywhere. You can tow it behind a vehicle, you can take it out into a field, you can take it onto a mountaintop, you can take it to a race, an event. You can take it to where you're growing a product today, and then you can move it to where you're going to be harvesting the product and processing the product later. And it's so versatile that police departments across the country, to universities across the country, oil and gas pipeline, all these different retail, you'll see our products in most Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart parking lots. You'll see them up in the parking lots, and literally it can be applied anywhere that you want to be able to see and secure a site for any type of product. This would work. So clearly in this industry, obviously you guys have all sorts of different steps along that way where you would want to have eyes, and this kind of fits that mold.
Tell me a little bit about, as I've talked to Amanda a little bit, she's filled me in on some of the things that you guys do and some of the value add. When we talk even grocery store, what is some of the stuff that you're seeing on the security side that with security prevents loss? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you a quick little tidbit. When I worked in the residential small business security side for a long time, the FBI came in one time and we did this little case study together, and they basically provided us with a bunch of information. We didn't do much. They just came in and gave us a bunch of stuff, which is cool. But they basically said, hey, we've done some studies, and studies show that if you just advertise that you have security in front of your house or your business, those little yard signs that sit out in front of your home, that you're 75% less likely to have a break-in just by having that little sign in the yard. And I think in some ways, what's preventing those break-ins is similar in this industry too. Thieves they're opportunistic burglars typically. They see an opportunity in the moment and they want to seize it, but they think twice when they see that somebody's watching them. So our units, we don't hide them. Our units are big, like I said, they're the size of a small car, and they sit in the parking lot and they go 22 feet in the air, and they have strobe lights on them and they have a speaker on them and they can talk to the individual. So those opportunistic burglars, clearly we don't prevent everything, obviously, but those opportunistic burglars, their opportunities are severely diminished when they see that somebody's watching or somebody's talking to them or that they're on video, and like, oh, well, I better think twice about this. I'll go do something somewhere else, right? So I think that's the first step of some of the data that we collected early on. We had one of our big box retail stores. We put in about 1,000 of these units across the country, and they came back and they said, hey, we've seen a 71% reduction in asset shrinkage within our stores wherever we put these units. And that's a huge number. You're saving millions and millions of dollars by just having the presence of these there.
Yeah, that's incredible. So that's kind of where I was going. I'm kind of taken back by the amount of theft that happens. And you and I kind of talked earlier about what we're starting to see in this industry and the theft in this industry. Where do you specifically see opportunity to reduce theft, or where have some of these units been previously just deployed in this industry? And I know in the past, a lot of hiccups have been around the ability to bank or bill a lot of these contracts.
Yeah. So there's a couple different opportunities that we see, and some that we're already taking advantage of, and some that we think that we can really lend a huge hand in that we haven't taken advantage of. So the first things that we've done is there are several growers that have come to us and said, hey, we have a problem with all the above. We have a problem with negative PR in the industry. We have a problem with people thinking that if I have this field here, it's going to attract vagrants or whatever. And so, or they say, yeah, literally people are coming into my agricultural sector, my grow field over here, and they're literally stealing product. So we take out these units, or they've come and picked them up, or we ship them out to wherever they're growing it. A guy came in just the other day from Oklahoma, picked up a couple units. He said, this is going to be awesome. He's like, I've got, I think it was 10 acres or 11 acres that he wanted to secure, and he has a problem with people coming in and harvesting, his stuff. And So yeah, we prevent that right off the bat. The second thing where there's clearly there could be some huge implication, I think, is whenever you go to an actual dispensary, of course, you can see that there's a presence there, of course, of security inside and outside of guards. And I'm sure they do a great job. There's nothing against, it's an honest living, and they're working hard and everything. The problem, the way we see it though, is that manual labor, manual guards guarding something literally physically is expensive. It's really expensive. In some cases, it can be unreliable, but generally the biggest issue is that it's really expensive. So we can replace, in some cases, guards by having a virtual person there, literally talking to me just like I'm talking to you now, and watching exactly what's going on and dispatching somebody if they need to. But also you can still secure that site digitally without having to worry about the implicated cost of hiring guards 24/7 to sit there and watch and protect. We can do it digitally. You don't necessarily need that. And that could go for tons of industries, right? We do it already with different governments and police and law enforcement and oil and gas. Like, we've replaced hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of guards all over the place. Not that our goal is to put these people out of business. Our goal is to give those companies better security. And you can, if you still want to hire that person and keep them, just put them somewhere else where they're maybe more needed, that maybe we don't fill that need quite yet. So keep that employee there, but just supplement with our digital product.
Right. And I think the part that I see that's so valuable is the ability to rewind or record or rewatch to confirm. I mean, you see all these shows all the time when it says, you see something like balls bouncing on the screen, and then it says, okay, how many gorillas did you see? Gorillas, there's a gorilla across the screen and you don't see it. And so I think there's so much seen or said for that when you have cameras and the ability to catch what one person's eye does not catch.
Yeah. Right? And then on top of that, like, we've all seen this, like, where you're watching the news one night and they show like, hey, this individual he came into a bank, let's just say, and robbed the bank, right? And it shows a picture of the person. And you're like, dude, that looks like every guy I know. Like, it's the worst picture. It's super grainy. And you're just looking for a guy that, between 5'5" and 6'5", right, sort of brownish, blondish hair. I don't know. Like, you just described half the country. And so really, there's a couple things here. One of them is that our technology, the way that we capture the video, we aren't uploading it the entire time to the cloud. It sits on the edge where you can pull down what you need into the cloud. And the benefit of that is we can record in really, really high definition. I mean, we can literally zoom in from hundreds and hundreds of feet away, and I can catch the license plate on a vehicle from hundreds and hundreds of feet away. And I can also get a really high definition picture of your face, which then we could turn over to authorities if we needed to. Whereas like in the bank, I mean, they're 4 feet away and they still can't catch a good HD picture of a face, right? Like, it's amazing that they catch any bank robbers ever with those kind of cameras. So
well, keep going. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. I'm just going to say, basically, our technology is different in the sense that it's one thing to have a video of what happened, whether it's in the moment or after the fact, but it's one to have one that you can actually take and actually do something with. Because a lot of times you come to your site or your business tomorrow and it's been ransacked, it's been broken into, you go back, you get the video and you're like, well, this video is useless. All it shows is that there's an individual, he looks like it may be a guy, who knows, and I don't have anything left. There's nothing to give authorities, there's nothing to go on. You're just like, yeah, it happened at 3 o'clock and now I don't have anything left.
Right. Or I suspect it's somebody based on what somebody told me.
Yeah. And the pictures are so bad that I don't even know that you could even use them in court. I mean, how could you convict somebody based on a grainy photo? It just doesn't work very well.
Well, and I can tell you that's happened. Somebody broke into my car and took my wallet, and I was able to pinpoint which register was used to the minute of my debit card was used, and the picture was still that. Even taking it to the officer, he was like, and now what?
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay. So you said something earlier that I always reference when I talk about your guys' technology and what you guys offer, the ability for the cameras to communicate. And I say previously, well, if I've got this field and I'm on a main road, or I've got a business and I'm on a main road and somebody walks by, I don't want to be alerted every time somebody walks by, right? Yeah. Or great, see somebody now climbing the fence at my facility, going to break in and take a box of crude or a box of isolate or distillate. How do is your system going to identify me different than the cat that walks by, or the raccoon that comes in, or the deer that walks through the field? Kind of help explain that, because I know that it's a pain point, and what sets you apart there.
Perfect. So to maybe preface that a little bit and to rephrase your question to make sure I've got it right. Clearly, there's a ton of cameras on the market. You can go on to, I don't know, however many different websites and purchase quote unquote HD cameras, right? There's a handful of problems with that. One of them is that just because it's a good camera doesn't mean that you're going to capture anything you want. And in fact, maybe even if you pay for a great fiber link to that camera, now all you have is just hours and hours and hours and hours of the cat crossing your street or a car driving down the street, right? And I know I have a doorbell camera that I set up with a home security company here at my home. And that stupid doorbell camera catches deer. It catches every single kid that goes up and down the street, cars, shadows, wind, whatever. And so I don't even check it most of the time anymore. I get an alert on my phone and I'm like, well, it's probably just the kid walking down the street coming home from school. I don't even check it, right? And so with our cameras, what we've done, not me, much smarter people than me, but these developers that get paid great money because they're really smart people, they developed on top of our cameras sits a software platform. And essentially what you can do is you can draw digitally on the camera lens, the layout, the landscape of what it's looking at. You draw a perimeter. Okay, so you can draw this perimeter. You say, hey, if anything crosses this perimeter, let me know. So for example, if I had that on my doorbell camera, I could draw a perimeter and just exclude the sidewalk. So that way, every time the kid comes up and down the sidewalk, it wouldn't pick it up. Or I could exclude the tree that blows in the wind all the time, right? But even further than that, what they've done is they say, hey, we're also going to take a heat signature and we can tell based on the heat signature and the shape, the difference between a cat, a deer coming across. Like where I live in the mountains, I have a lot of deer in my yard all the time, which I love, but my camera also loves to tell me that there's deer in the front yard all the time, which doesn't really do me any good. But we could do the same thing in our security industry now. We can tell you that, hey, there's a deer, but we can also not alert you that there's a deer. We can just alert you when it's an actual human being walking across your camera lens or your boundary box. So we cut out all those false alarms. So that way, when you do get an alert at 3 a.m, you're not going to be like, oh, it's just another deer coming into my field, or it's just another cat going across the parking lot, right? You're like, oh, wait, something's going on. I better check it out. So that boy who cried wolf thing is gone.
Well, and I think you said it well. I've actually turned my camera off in the back of my house because it alerts me for everything that comes by.
Right. Exactly. Including shadows and wind and all that stuff.
Well, I think this is important too. And I don't really understand the billing model. I didn't really get into it, but tell me about the live stream time that I watch a camera versus when something is just alerted. What's the difference in cost for other programs that may stream consistently or stream everything versus being able to really just hone in on where there's an actual threat? And
sure,
about being able to talk through to that person and what that does for businesses. Sure.
So I flip my camera back on. Hopefully, if it starts to degrade again, I'll just flip it back off. But I apologize. So there's a couple things. If you have access to fiber wherever you're at, fiber works great. I know I before my previous role, before coming to LiveView, I worked with fiber and wireless networks, and I know a little bit about that. But on our end, where we're deploying these cameras, you typically don't have access to fiber. That's why they're deploying this there too. So because of that, you're on a wireless network. And if you were to stream 24/7, everything that's coming in, and you were to save it in the cloud, for example, the cost to stream becomes so astronomical, at least if you're streaming in high def. That's why typically the pictures you see aren't high def, is because nobody can stream in high def because it takes a tremendous amount of bandwidth to stream in high def. I mean, hence why my camera doesn't work here. I don't have a great connection at my house, right? And so what we've done is our network, essentially, we save everything on the edge, and then we only upload to the cloud what we need. So those alerts that you're talking about. So unless you want to jump in live and you want to see in live real time what's going on, of course, that's in high def. But that does typically, you don't just sit there and watch a camera all day, every day. I don't think there's very many people that would be too excited to do that. So what we do is we have these alerts set up, and we help our customers go through and create the rules around the alerts. So for example, one of our big box retailers, they say, hey, anything after 8 o'clock, between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m., if anybody crosses this boundary box, that's the little line that we draw digitally on our camera field of view. If anything crosses that, alert me. That's a human. if a mouse runs across it or whatever, don't alert me for that, but just alert me when it's an actual person. So therefore, then at midnight, you get an alert if you're the business owner or you're the asset control or whoever it is, and it says, hey, there's something there. So you pull it up, you look at it, and sure enough, it's a person walking across that secured area. And we have on the top of all of our units a two-way talk down speaker. And then you, as the owner, you can say, hey, you in the blue shirt, what's going on over there? And then that person can say, oh, sorry, I was just cutting through the parking lot on my way to the other side. And, no harm, no foul, they leave. Or if things are tight and you don't want to necessarily talk to them at 3 a.m, you don't have somebody dedicated to do that and you want to sleep, you can also have it pre-recorded to play a certain sound. So it can just say, hey, this is a no trespassing area, you need to leave. And it's pre-recorded. And it can be your voice. They don't know that it's not live, or it could be live. That's totally up to you. Or if you have an issue with, for example, animals coming in and tearing things up, like in Texas, of course, they have a huge issue with feral hogs down there and getting in and destroying all sorts of crops and things like that. And so we've had some people come and say, hey, look, let's put up a camera in this area over here where we're trying to grow whatever. And we want to scare off the pigs every time they come in. So we have floodlights on our system. The floodlights will turn on when they see the pigs come across, loud siren blasts, and it scares the pigs off. Keeps them from tearing up the fields and costing hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage to these fields where these guys are trying to make a living. So anyways, those are some of the things that it can do. I guess I answered your question in a really long answer, but
I think it's great. I always laugh when I watched some sample videos when I was in someone's office one day, and people were crossing over the construction fence, a fence that had been blocked off on construction, and somebody, clearly up to no good, 2 gentlemen, jumped the fence, and somebody on your side or the other side said, hey, what are you doing? You in the blue shirt, you're trespassing. You're no longer allowed on this property. And immediately both of them crossed back up over the fence and left. Had somebody not been there, and I look at other security or other options that are out there, had somebody not been there or been able to identify what they're actually wearing and actually be there as they're crossing, how long would it have taken to actually get officers there, right? Or I look at other security systems that are, it alerts the police system, right? Or the security officer, and then the officer alerts the police, and by the time they get there, product's gone and it's too late. It's now reviewing. This is very immediate. It's hands-on. You see right away. No wonder you guys are growing as faster as big as you are, because it's a huge leap ahead of what we've been experiencing or what we know.
Exactly. Yeah. Be able to be alerted right when something's happened and then see exactly what's going on is key. Time is of the essence in any of these situations. And the alternative really has been either you put up what we call it just a dumb camera, the opposite of a smart camera, where you come in like your car at 3 a.m. and something happened, and you go out to get in your car to go to work in the morning. You're like, oh, someone must have come in between the hours of 8 p.m. and 1 a.m. or whatever and broken into my car. Who knows what happened? But what we can also do, or the other alternative is if you're a business, you hire security in the form of like a guard of some type. And in some cases, if you have a little more money, you can keep a guard there on site. Or if you don't have as much money and you're on a tight budget, you'll hire a guard to do like a tour. So they'll stop in every 20, 30 minutes, drive through the property, and then leave. Or maybe hour or 2 hours or whatever the cadence is that you hire. And we've even had one of, I won't name names, but one of everybody's heard of them. It's a huge big box retailer. We were talking to them the other day on the phone, and they said when they were doing their first pilot with us, with our technology, one of the reasons that why they went with us is because they had guards in their parking lots at night to keep not just employees that were coming and going safe, but also to keep their products that they keep out in front of the stores and things like that there. But anyway, so this individual that works for the company, she was going around and she was doing an audit in the middle of the night to just look at what the guards were doing on her own. She wanted to see firsthand what it is they do, where they drive, how long they spend on the property, all that. So she shows up to the first store, I think it was in Florida somewhere. And she shows up to the first store. She sees the security guard in his truck there. And she's like, oh, great. Let me go talk to him real quick. It's like 3 a.m. She goes over there. Surprise, he's asleep. He's sitting in the car asleep. And not all of them are like that. I don't want to paint all guards like that. I'm sure that a lot of them do great work. But that's the downside of hiring a person versus having technology do it for us, is that you're now dependent upon that person staying awake, staying alert, not doing something that they're going to regret, right, in the heat of the moment, like we've seen all across the country with different scenarios when you know, emotions get the most of everybody. So hopefully this is a better, much cheaper alternative to keeping things secure than having, you know, a guard or just a camera pointed in one direction.
Okay, so can you tell me some funny stories? I've heard a few funny stories of things that happen in the security industry. One thing for me is like people trying to steal carts. In the past, some things that different companies have done to prevent theft by stopping carts from passing certain lines, right? And then people just pick up their stuff and leaving. Well, it's funny and it's a joke, right? It's funny to watch on camera, but what about the risk? You know, the approaching somebody that is stealing becomes a big risk to those people, to the
it absolutely
employees.
does.
Right. And so being hands off is a huge benefit as an employer and to the employees, as well as not being present. Right. But yeah, what are some funny things that you've seen? What do you do?
Oh, there's tons of stories, some funny, some serious, some not so funny, I guess. Some of the issues you have, our cameras capture everything. You can name anything that happens in a parking lot at dark. We've seen it, as you can imagine. So it's pretty wild, some of the stuff that they'll catch. Yeah, people are just people. They do things in parking lots. And in some cases, it's, you know, there's vagrancy, people parking their cars and doing stuff, whatever. But every now and then you'll get, well, for example, then they may, there's in some of our areas, mainly in the South, of course, they have a homeless population that tends to hang out in parking lots in certain areas, California and Florida and places like that, Hawaii. And so most of the time they're totally harmless. They're just looking for a place to hunker down and sleep. But sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just looking for an opportunity to make a quick buck and get something. Or sometimes they're looking for a place to use the restroom or whatever. In any of those scenarios, most businesses don't want them on their property and they want them to leave. And so having a two-way speaker in the middle of the night to say, hey, you in the blue shirt, time to move along, keep it moving. Or, hey, you in the car, knock it off, keep going, you know, drive somewhere else, you know, that kind of stuff. So that stuff happens a lot. And then some of this more serious stuff, of course, is you catch all sorts of stuff. And especially right now where there's so much turmoil and stuff going on in our country, unfortunately, that you catch a lot of the not so good stuff with some of the looting and stuff that's gone on. And we've been able to film and catch and turn it over to the authorities for prosecution and things like that are just lawlessness, you know, stuff that shouldn't be happening.
Absolutely. Well, and again, so back to our industry that really is no different than any of these others, that we need protection, right? And with so many regulations or lack thereof, or lack of opportunities to utilize something like this, we have a lot of businesses that are losing during theft or to theft, or that I go back to what type of system is in place or can be in place to help protect, you know, from internal theft and or protection on processes, to know that intent was this, or product went to this place, or what's the difference in the security versus, you know, being able to actually stream live? Because not wanting to stream live every single day, but maybe what about during lab time, you know, and just knowing processes.
Certainly. And this kind of our little mantra is we don't blink. Right? Like our systems are always recording. So if you're in a lab and you want it recording, it's always recording. If somebody comes up and says and accuses you of something, or your business or whatever, it's really easy to go back and look at our feed and say, hey, yeah, this is legit, or this isn't legit. This really did happen or didn't happen. And I guess worst case scenario, it did happen, but that gives you an opportunity to fix it and not let it happen again. So it's a win-win, I think, either way. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and because we're under such a microscope, it's just another layer of protection, right?
Yeah.
Can you read this question here from Dave Rockwood?
Dave Rockwood says, so in a hemp field, are you only using cellular? Do you have remote connectivity? And the answer is yes, all the above. So depending on where your field is, you may or may not have a cellular connection with one of the 3, 4, now 3 kind of major carriers. But we also offer celestial satellite communication as well. So if you're in remote areas, we can do that. Some of the places that, like I told you, oil and gas pipelines, we secure those all over the world, literally. And we can just do it with a satellite link. So we no longer need to have, a Verizon wireless cell tower within a mile or so of your field. We can do it anywhere.
Yeah. So this is where David's really well connected to some big fields internationally and some bigger organizations internationally with where I think this would be a great value add. He also has a technology that is a satellite technology where he's able to pull a lot of data on the field. Maybe a great connection when we talk about, lead generation and being able to provide or link up and provide services to existing clients.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But great opportunity. And then Justin wants to know what kind of music you play on the drums, Paul. I think he missed our intro this morning about.
Well, I don't know if you call it music. I like to bang on the drums. I'm not very good. They belong to my son. My 14-year-old son plays the drums. And what you can't tell is I'm in the back corner of the house in the basement. And we put the drums back here because he just comes in and just smashes these drums apart. And anyway, when COVID shut everybody down back in April or whatever, I was going crazy. I mean, I had never literally been still a moment in my life, and then I was told I can't go to work, I can't go anywhere, you can't go to the gym, you can't work out, you can't run. And so anyway, one of the things that I took up was drum lessons. So my 14-year-old kid taught me how to play a few drums, and I can play a few Nirvana songs and stuff from my youth that he doesn't think is so cool, but I think it's kind of cool. But that's about it. I'm not very good.
Well, you're better than I am. I learned really young when I was trying to play the piano that I struggle with getting my left hand and my right hand to do something different. So carrying two beats, I struggle with. I also struggle like if I'm trying to dance, so like a Zumba or a instructed dance class, I end up just working one side because I can only figure out like I can only do the direction she's going. I cannot.
Your right side is in great shape. Your left side, not so much.
Bingo. It's real bad. And the drums are even worse, like tapping your foot one beat and hitting drums. Yeah, I can't do it.
That's awesome.
Well, very cool. So where are you guys headed as far as an organization? Where are you guys going? And kind of give me an update. I know Amanda, so I can kind of talk to where you guys have been. But I feel like you've been pretty humble about LiveView and where you guys really are as far as projection and growth. And when we talk about opportunities, I've been taken back by the number of opportunities you guys have been able to provide in the last couple of months to other people, other companies. So do you mind, touching a little bit on where you guys have been compared to where you really see this going over the next couple of years?
Yeah. LiveView is another one of those companies that I think will be the next unicorn out of Utah County. So there's been several over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. I've had the opportunity to work with a couple of them, and they just keep growing like crazy. So 15 years ago, the company was started, and like most mom and pop kind of startups, it was successful, but it didn't have this trajectory that it was anybody knew what it was, or like, oh, look out for them kind of a thing. And how I got involved as a neighbor of mine where I live, he hit me up a little while ago and he's like, hey, this is kind of right up your alley. You should come check this thing out. And I thought he was blowing smoke, like most people do. We kind of stick our chest out and kind of, love to kind of like stroke that ego a little bit, like, oh no, my company's better. And anyway, not that I thought he's that guy. I just thought, well, maybe it's legit. Maybe it's just another. Yeah, everybody's gonna hit it big. Everybody's gonna be a billionaire, kind of a thing. So, anyway, so I went in one day and sat down with him, kind of expecting to hear the typical spiel from a tech company, like, oh, well, we're going to go get some funding and then we're going to grow a ton. And it was quite the opposite. It was, hey, we don't need any funding and we're growing a ton already and we need help. And I was like, whoa, this is not what I expected. And so that's where it is today. Over the last couple of months, they've hired a lot of people, a lot of really smart people, and they're putting together this trajectory that honestly, I think in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, if it hasn't been purchased or acquired by somebody, we get people all the time coming into the business and big companies saying, hey, we want to talk about an acquisition with your platform. And so far, the owners of the company have said no, but who knows? I mean, I'm not the owner. They could do whatever they want. It's their business. But I've loved working there. It's been awesome. And we think in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, we'll probably 10x our revenue and our employees and our locations, and we'll be global. And that gets exciting. I love international business. I love talking to different people. I mean, it's super interesting. Anytime you can go learn something about another industry or get on the phone with these huge big box retailers and they're telling you what their best practices are. I mean, that's just an opportunity. Absolutely an opportunity. It's been awesome.
Yes, well, it's been fun watching, and every time I talk about the business, it's eye-opening to me again where you guys really are. You really are supplying, you're leading the industry in security for all of our big box stores.
Yeah, there's no question. And everybody in the big box retail space knows who we are and has our number on speed dial, and they call us constantly. And they'll call us up one day and say, hey, we need, literally just the other day, someone called and they said, hey, we need 200 units. And then the next day they called back and they said, no, change that. We want 300 units. And so it's stuff like that that's happening all the time. And it's not like they call in and we're shocked that they're calling us. It's kind of become par for the course. And maybe that sounds like we have, a little bit of hubris going on, but that's not. I think it's quite the opposite. When you walk in our office, it's a pretty humble little office. It does, when I first walk, it kind of smells like a high school locker room. It's not like the Class A retail space. Like it's, it kind of stinks a little bit, and it's just, but they're good people that work there, and we got a ton going for us, and we're happy with it. We're happy to be the underdogs and keep it coming. That's kind of our attitude.
Well, you said it well, right? And I've watched it grow over the last couple of years, and I've watched it turn into what it is, back from one of the first hires there, right? And so it's been fun to really watch and hear the stories about the growth and the success. What's been more eye-opening is the need, and that this is something that's so new and it's hard to comprehend. And so this is kind of where I see opportunity for the cannabis industry and this tech, Utah's tech, to connect. Because this tech piece is a huge value add for the security or the safety net that we can provide to the industry, and especially the non-secured assets, right? When we're out in the field, being able to, so give me an idea of, if I have 100 acres, how many, and my hemp is 6 to 10 feet tall. Give me an idea, how many trailers do I need, or how is it installed or deployed?
There's a few scenarios there we want to talk through. So if let's just say you come in, you say, I have these 100 acres I want secured or whatever. The first few questions we would want to know is, what are you securing for? Right? Are you worried about people coming in? Are you worried about animals ripping things up? What is it that you're trying to secure from, first of all? Second of all is, where would they be coming in from? Right? Typically, they aren't going to, there's an ingress and an egress typically for most properties. So we'd want to start there and say, hey, are you worried about, employees? Are you worried about the neighbor down the street or the next field over? Or where do you think they're coming from? So you may not necessarily need a camera, every so many feet. It may be more about securing the entrances and the exits, because there are people coming and going, and you want to see who's on the property at any given time. And maybe that's where you start. So the solution may be easier than necessarily having a camera on every single plant and keeping an eye on every single plant in the field, right? So we do this quite a bit. Take, for example, the oil and gas pipeline industry. When you go out to a refinery or a station somewhere, sometimes these are acres and acres and acres big. And we don't necessarily put a camera every acre, right? We'll put a camera maybe at the entrance, the exit, somewhere in the middle, or something that's critical, somewhere infrastructure, and kind of keep that down. So that saves on cost quite a bit when you try and secure it that way. Our cameras, typically, they can go up several hundred feet out and still be able to zoom in, like I mentioned earlier, and you can get a license plate from several hundred feet away. That's really quite easy. And then we have a thermal camera that right now is probably, I'd say it's accurate within about 200, 250 feet, somewhere in there. But one thing that is coming out in the future is we have a thermal company based in Utah, actually. They work at an office in San Francisco and one in Utah, and they have a camera that we're testing right now that goes out 1,000 feet, that will be able to get an image, a thermal image of a person or a deer or whatever it is, up to 1,000 feet away on this unit.
And then from there, will you be able to identify the alert to? Correct. Mm-hmm. Whether it's or a human, so you'll real quick know who's approaching property.
Yep, and then you mentioned the height. Our cameras, we could put a camera anywhere. So if you have a great big building, or you have a great big pole, or you want it on a pole so it's higher or whatever, we can do that. But our mobile units themselves, they go up to 22 feet high. And if you need something higher than that, we can install poles that can go up much higher. For example, we do all the cameras for UDOT here in the state of Utah and several other states. And you've seen their cameras up on poles and stuff, and they're 30, 40, 50 feet in the air in some cases. And so we have no problem doing those either. It's just typically our mobile unit works for most applications. And we have them, the cruise line industry, we right now, as you would expect, there's not very many people taking cruises around the world. And so all these boats are sitting in ports and they want them secured. And these boats are huge. Well, we have cameras outside the boats, our mobile units, they put at the entrances to these boats to keep them secure, keep people from getting around there and doing stuff they shouldn't. So the application really is pretty malleable depending on what you need it to do. If you need it to go out 1,000 feet, we'll put it up on a taller pole, get a different camera, whatever we need it to do.
So to any of our listeners and anybody out there in this space, really, this is a solution on a much more affordable cost with a much larger parameter for capabilities, or a much bigger platform, I guess, right?
Oh yeah, they'll save you a typical 24-hour guard. If you were to put a guard on your dispensary, let's just say the guard that sits out in front of the dispensary, that one guard, obviously that one person doesn't work 24/7, but you have 3 or 4 people that kind of take that shift. It's going to cost you somewhere between $120,000 and $150,000 a year to keep somebody sitting there, just to keep an eye on things. So if you're spending, $150,000 a year, we can get you a 24/7 camera that you can talk through for a fraction of that cost, and we can do that for less than 10% than what it would cost you to have a person sitting there. Now, there's benefits to having people too, but in most applications, I think we can replace people, or at least move people to where they can be more critical, and then use digital to fill in the gaps.
Okay, so talk to me about a couple of different scenarios for cost. If I'm a farmer and I have, say, 15 acres and I'm worried about theft, or let's talk greenhouses, because I think that the cannabis space is a little bit different than the hemp space, like we talked about. Their crop is worth more money, right? Typically,
sure. Yeah.
Or can be.
Yeah.
I think the risk of theft, but the misconception about understanding the difference between cannabis and hemp, I think, could pose a lot of risk for small farmers also, right? And so
sure.
if we've got a small grow, a few greenhouses, or 15 acres-ish, 15 to 100 acres, what's an average cost to get 1 to 2 cameras out? What's on average, I guess, being deployed? A couple of cameras for a small organization versus your big box stores are obviously hundreds. But.
Yeah. So if you take like a big box retail store, typically they put 1 or 2 of these in their parking lot to secure a parking lot. Not necessarily because they can't see the entire parking lot, but more because they want to have different things secured. So for example, they'll have one in the back of the parking lot and then one up towards the front where everybody can see it. And they'll light it up so that the strobe lights are going all day, every day, all night. And they want you to know right when you walk in the store, hey, look, I've watched you. I saw where you parked. I watched your car come in. And it's in the back of these people's minds, right? So I don't know much about the security in a greenhouse or what they do or don't want, but I would imagine if there's a blue light flashing with cameras everywhere, people would think twice about what they're about to do there. And so I would think that a warehouse or a grow site or something like that for a cannabis would probably be similar to like a big box retail store. You'd want them to know that there's cameras. You want them to know there's surveillance right there. You'd want to make sure you secure the ingress and egress first off. And then if you want something internal, we could do internal cameras too. Or if you already have internal cameras or external cameras for that matter, they can sit on our platform as well. So we don't necessarily tell you shouldn't use those cameras. But if there's not software on top of them that gives you that added alert and stuff like that, we can help with that. We can help get those cameras on our network as well. So that's kind of where the bread and butter comes in, is the software that sits on top of there. As far as cost goes, again, depending on the site, there's so many factors without having a specific one to kind of do. It's kind of hard to tell. But let's just say it was 5 acres. You could easily use 1 or 2 cameras on a 5-acre parcel if you're trying to secure it. Mainly ingress and egress, and then several hundred feet out, you're still very effective at that point. Yeah. Cost goes typically for our units that we do, depending on the setup of cameras and the number of alerts, or if you want it professionally monitored or not monitored, or you'll monitor the alerts yourself. Cost can range anywhere from about $2,500 a camera up to about $3,500 in the camera. If you don't want the thermal alerts and thermal cameras and all you want is just a live feed, then it's quite a bit cheaper than that. But then you don't get the alerts and the software platform on top of that. So every application is a little bit different. If people want to quote, and want us to help them design a system specifically for their use case, they go onto our website. It's just lvt.co or liveviewtechnologies.com. And there's a form on there. They can just request a quote. We'll look at the property. We'll look at the warehouse, and people can see right on there. They can request a quote, and we'll call them up or do a Zoom call, show them how the cameras work, and get them a bid exactly.
I was just going to ask you, so if people want to get in touch with you, is there a contact form, or how do people reach you specifically, Paul?
Yeah, specifically, I'm happy to take emails. You can email me specifically if you'd like, if you have any questions. My email's paul.haynie, paul.haynie, Haynie, at liveviewtech.com. Or then go onto our website, lvt.co or liveviewtechnologies.com, and they can, there's a form at the top that says contact, request a quote, fill that out, and they'll have one of our account executives give them a call and walk them through exactly what it is they need, what they don't need. If they have questions about the cameras or costs or terms or lengths and what it can and can't do, all that kind of stuff. We do that all day, every day with people all over the world. So it's not the first time.
Well, and if anybody has questions and wants help, don't hesitate to reach out. My girlfriend over there is really good at her job. She'll happily give a demo. I'm really actually excited to share some of the demo because it is very different from anything that we've seen. And I look to the protection of our industry as they're trying to do things right. And as rules are changing, there's a lot of change in regulation. And I again go back to not just the security of their asset, but the protection to what they're doing. And so the high def cameras and the technology and the tech platform, right, is where I see so much value add, even more than just the camera.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I would love to help make connections. I'd love to help generate connections. I'd love to, highlight what you guys are doing, because I think that it is definitely, it's without a doubt.
Yeah. Well, and also your listeners and followers, of course, they know you, they've listened to you a ton. And if they have questions, I'm sure they'll reach out to you because they trust you, and you can just pass them along to us or have them just ask you the questions. We're happy to help however we can. And if they call us and they say, hey, here's my use case. I have an acre of something. And we say, well, it's not really a great solution for you. We'll tell you that our solution isn't maybe going to work for you. But there's a lot of people that does work for, and we'll be as honest and upright and everything as we can, so that, maybe down the road you say, hey, I don't have 1 acre, I have 100 acres. Now let's call these guys back. We'll get that. Right. We want to win the business either way down the road if we can, but we don't want to pull the wool over anyone's eyes in the meantime. So we'll do it the right way. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, maybe we can recommend something else.
Well, and this goes back to, why are you the new unicorn coming out of Utah, right? I think that integrity has been there from the beginning. We're not the right solution for everyone. And as you guys have developed and grown, you've become more of a solution for more people. But knowing that you're not the solution for the small business, I'm not in a spot personally to I don't need the services you guys provide, where I know plenty of members, like I said, even at our last event where we had two people within Utah that lost a large summer crop, $200,000 due to theft within 1 week, where had they had cameras, and to them, they thought they knew who it was because someone told them or because of past history. But even with a camera, not being able to really identify them. And so just more and more, I see that this is a need. And the more that people are trying to get into a legal, legitimate business, the security provides them a buffer of knowledge and knowing what's happening, So
on our end too, I think it's also important to say that those cameras that we put up there, they're not for us. They're not for our company, right? They're for the person that's purchasing, our client. So our client has exclusive access to that. If someone were to come to us and say, hey, share with us that feed of what's going on over there, clearly we would never turn that over to anybody, including law enforcement, without a subpoena, ever. So we're doing it 100% the legit and legal way, and we'll continue to do it that way. And we want to support anybody that has a need for the camera, whatever industry they're in, including this one.
Well, and so people know, I'm not pushing LiveView into cannabis. We're not here saying, hey, this is a great vertical for you to come in. you guys have already serviced a lot of cannabis companies.
We do.
And
we do
your
quite a bit.
distributors are servicing a lot of cannabis industries, right?
Correct.
And so having a relationship with your office and your team and knowing what you've been able to do for other people, it's a no-brainer for me to introduce you, because I've already seen backhand, you know, from the backside, what people are capable of when it comes to theft and the opportunity in the industry that we need something like this, right? And a company that is proven successful. And knowing that we're different. Oh, we don't have power out in the middle of the fields. So how do you provide this? And how do you keep somebody awake when it's 3 a.m. and they're out in the middle of a field?
Or how do you even know if they're awake, right? How would you know? Yeah, well, we can check. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love it. It's been great to meet you. I'm excited still to come down to the office when you guys are back in the office and up and running. I'll have to come down and harass.
Please do.
It's been fun to watch you guys grow. Where are you guys at now that trade shows have kind of shut down? What are you guys doing for business development? Well,
good question.
Knowing you guys really haven't had to do a lot of business development.
You know, and it's funny, like with the unrest that's happened right now and with the political upheaval and everything that the country's in, unfortunately, fortunately for us, it's been good for business, but unfortunately everybody else has kind of seen all the turmoil, but business just keeps growing. We haven't done trade shows because they haven't existed in the last 8 months, but there's been some digital ones that we've participated in. There's some digital forums that we've participated in. But as soon as they're open and there's trade shows going again, we'll be the first ones there. We want to be there. We want to be with people. I think it's crazy that your whole life you go hugging and shaking hands and everything, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And I think there's part of like our squishy little monkey brain that needs that interaction with people, like just from an evolutionary standpoint, we need to be around people again. And I can't wait to get back to a trade show and just talk to people and shake their hand and get to know people. So we'll be the first ones in the door.
There's so much lost over this type. I mean, you and I have now been on the phone in total for nearly 2 hours, a good hour and a half at least, right? And we could have accomplished a connection or a conversation, right, in a very short period of time that you just can't when you're digital. It's just it's a different level of connection. It's a different level of understanding and knowing what their true needs are and being able to seek pain points and solve problems. And it's very well. I'd love to have you involved in our association as much as possible.
We'd love
to anybody else that is still listening, we have our monthly AHA meeting tomorrow. I'll add the link in here just real quick. But it's every month, every third Tuesday of the month at 11 o'clock Mountain Time, we host a meeting. We'll get updates from committees like our Construction and Building Committee, our Textiles, Safety, and then kind of an overview about where we're going and what we're doing. We're really going to touch tomorrow on what we're going to do about Utah and how we can help support Utah. So I'd love to have you involved. Paul, we also do committee meetings. I know that the security and the safety and the regulations piece is a committee that's really starting to get going, and I think that you guys would fit very nice in there. Being able to really offer solutions this is a much bigger picture for the industry than just the sales and distribution. Not that that's a bad or less piece, right? But I think that it really plays a big picture. So I'd love to have you guys involved. I'll add the links and send them over to you. But if anybody else has questions or needs anything, don't hesitate to reach out to either Paul or I at any time. And thanks again, Paul, for joining us. I'm excited to
thanks. It's been fun.
Get to know you. Okay, well, thank you very much. We'll talk another time. Have a good one.
Bye.
See you later.